welcome to episode 8 of the Just Run podcast with me, Rhys Morgan.
And me, Nathan Marshall.
Last week's episode was great with Jade, so if anybody has not gone over and caught up with it yet, please do. Jade is a super running mum, and if you haven't already listened, yeah, she's so inspiring and is currently training for Ultra X Finland. So head over, check out her progress, and when you get a chance. On this week's episode, we have the dynamic duo who are not just partners in life, but also in fitness. So joining us, Mark and Jenn Lewis. They're a powerhouse couple who are conquering the fitness game and inspiring others through their YouTube channel. Mark is the founder of Cardio Dolphin, the Above Average podcast, and is a successful YouTube influencer, I guess is the term. And Jenn, his wife, is currently documenting her fitness journey alongside him on YouTube as well, competing against Mark and smashing targets. So yeah, it's going to be a really good one. Stay tuned, and yeah, let's get rolling with it. But before we do dive into it, Nath, I actually bumped into you at the gym this week. It was good to see you in person as opposed to on a screen.
Yeah, it was weird, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
Very weird.
A double take. I was like, is that him?
Yeah, it was very odd. Yeah, he caught me on a bad day. Went in, wanted to lift quite heavy, but due to still on my back and everything, still having a shooting pain down my left arm. I couldn't lift anything more than 20 kilos using my left arm, so I was kind of beaten up when I got speaking to you. So yeah, it was a bit of a crap moment for me, really.
You looked a bit disheartened, mate. I'm not going to lie. I'd only just got in there, and you looked very disheartened by it all. But, mate, it's, as we both well know, these injuries come and go, especially when you're doing your impression of Bambi on ice. These things tend to happen, unfortunately. It's just, as long as you're looking after yourself and everything, it'll get better in time. That's the good thing. It's not, I'm sure it's not a permanent thing, but did you manage to go, or have you been since that?
No, I've been running though. Managed to do about 30 miles last week. I did hills today, hill rep sprints. So yeah, I'm still getting running in.
Nice.
Yeah, and my new shoes come yesterday.
Yeah, I was going to say about.
So yeah, if you don't know, I've been lucky enough to be supported by Soulmate shop at Merthyr and Topu. And they supplied me for my shoes for the Welsh Coastal Path this year, which is great. And they come yesterday, a pair of road shoes and a pair of trail shoes. I did fancy wearing the trail shoes today, but I just thought I didn't want to get dirty.
I know exactly what you mean. When you get new kit, you're like, I don't want to, but then you know what's going to happen. The way the weather's been, they're a lovely colour, and they certainly will look anything like that after you've finished bouncing through the mud, I'm sure, mate. But that's great. You've got that support. It's really good, and fair play to Soulmate. That's it's awesome that they got you back there, because let's face it, your speed goat's dead in the RIP.
Oh, yeah. There's more tread on a Formula 1 tyre than my speed goats now. They're terrible. I think they've got a 2-inch split down the side now as well.
Are you going to bin them? What are you going to do?
No,
you going to bin them?
I might frame them, one of them.
There is actually a company. I'll have to look into it. There's a company where you can recycle them. But yeah, lots of things you can do with old.
Well, believe it or not, the Topus, they're actually made from recycled plastics. In each shoe, in each pair, there's 3 plastic bottles.
That's amazing.
I know, it's wicked.
Does that mean you can take them off and drink out of them as well then?
Oh, I hope not. Oh, imagine that. Bit of toe jam. Odd skin from where the blisters come off. No thanks.
You'd be doing on it, wouldn't you? No, that doesn't sound appealing to me whatsoever. No.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. Well, yeah, good. Well, I'm glad you're able to run and stuff. I know, like, the weights and stuff, but mate, it'll all come. You've still got a bit of time yet, so I'm sure you'll be all gravy.
Any news and updates on yours?
I mean, obviously, with the 100 mile, I know I'm only about 16, 17 weeks out from that, so I need to get back out on the trails. Knees feeling stronger again is every week. Body's feeling nice and strong. And
But yeah, because
yeah,
what was your run the other day? How many miles
uh,
did you do?
just under 17 it was, just under 17 miles from, I ran from Cardiff to Newport because a couple of my oldest mates are emigrating to Australia. So I had a bit of free time and I thought instead of, well, actually, I didn't have the car, the wife wasn't here. So I used it as an excuse to just run. So I ran and I felt really strong. It was boring because it was just one long road, but I mean, I did it and I felt really, really good for it. And my knee felt solid. So that was nice. And it was dry. It was one of the only days I think that we didn't have rain. So that was good. And I'm actually going back a little bit on everything we've talked about previously. I'm actually going to follow a training program now. Shout out to Runner, RUNNA. You've probably heard of it. Really good running app. Oddly enough, they don't have, and I've messaged them, they don't have 100-mile training plan. They've got 30K, 50K, they got 110K. And then they've got multi-day 220K training plans. So I messaged them and said, what's that all about? And they just said they just haven't got one at the moment, but do the multi-day one. And you can also, on the app, you can add in strength and fitness training. So I'm following that, and yeah, it increases the mileage incrementally. I think I'm not going to beat myself up. Like today, for example, I couldn't get up and do it because of various reasons, just time limitations with work and the baby and things like that. But you know what? It is what it is. I didn't do it, and I'm going to do it tomorrow. So it's just one of those things about not getting tied down to days and beating yourself up about it. But it looks really good. So I'm going to sign up for that for the next few months and see how I get on. And then my other big challenge, which I still can't really talk about, unfortunately, I'm psyched to talk about it. But yeah, a bit more progress on that as well. And it is going to be a huge ultra running challenge. And I've reached out to some people and I've had a lot of support already, including Varga, the hats. You know, the hats I always wear. Yeah, I had a package through the day with 3 stunning caps, well, 2 baseball caps and a bucket hat for various reasons that I can't go into because of, certain places I'll be running. But let's just say I reached out to them and they were so great and supportive. So things are moving in the background, and once I've got all that tied down, I'll be able to announce what I'm doing, and it's going to be awesome. But yeah, otherwise, just life, juggling, training, and being a parent, mate. You know how it is.
Are the current posts on social media getting you excited though?
Yes.
From that company?
Yes. Yes, they are very. And I've been speaking to certain people to do with said posts, and yes, I'm getting very excited and itchy feet. I just want to sort things now. But I got meetings coming up with certain people, certain organisations and stuff, and that are going to make this possible. So yeah, got a few things to tie down in the background. And anybody who's listening here and wondering what it is, you may have seen a couple of nuggets that have dropped on social media, but I'm not going to say anything until it's all finalised. But it's going to be a really cool post. So yeah, I'm buzzing. But yeah.
Yeah, I think next year is going to be a wicked year for both of us, I think.
It is.
The Dragon Cannonball 87 is currently being uploaded to SI entries now, so that's going to be launched in the next week or so. Yeah, wicked.
That's class, man. I'm buzzing for you. That's so cool. Like, you plucked this idea out, and here we go, making it a reality, mate. Being accountable, that's what it's all about. And yeah. In fact, that's one thing you said to me when you reached out to me. Considering I've met you once, like in person, about setting this podcast up, when you reached out to me and said, do you want to do it? You said, let's be accountable. And within a week, Spotify was set up, the Instagram page was set up. And that's one thing you're good at, in fairness, mate. I will give that, praise where praise is due. You're, when you set your heart on something, you get it done. So good for you, because me being me, I probably would have said yes and then left her a few months before we did anything. So good for you.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I guess on that note, without further ado, we have the dynamic duo here, partners in life and in fitness, Mark and Jenn Lewis. So hello, Mark and Jenn. How are you guys doing?
I'm going first.
Yeah, you're going first. Yeah.
Sorry, it's unusual I get to go first. We are really, really well, thank you. Well, I'm really, really well.
I'm going second, and I'm also really well.
Good to hear. And just for anybody who's listening who doesn't already follow you guys, I mean, this is just your chance. Just I know you've done this probably a million times. Just tell a little bit about yourself, Mark and Jen, in whichever order you want. Really, just obviously how you got to this point and a bit about your journey and yeah, any upcoming challenges and stuff. Really.
Shall I go first this time
Yeah.
to avoid any uncomfortable silences? Yeah. What's our journey? We used to run a financial services company, which was staggeringly boring. So during COVID, when we were forced to obviously stay in the house, we thought it might be quite cool to just never leave the house and just work out in it permanently. So we started filming it, stuck it on YouTube, and by some miracle, enough people started watching it that we never went back to financial services, and now we somehow scrape a living by filming ourselves running around, cycling, doing stupid kind of fitness challenges. Yeah, on YouTube. I mean, as simple as that, really. It's kind of the Top Gear of fitness, it's been described as, because neither of us have any qualifications
Or skill.
or anything really to do with fitness. In fact, we're not even that fit, to be honest. So we are quite literally the kind of Clarkson and Hammond of fitness.
I'm assuming I'm Hammond and
You're Hammond, the hamster Hammond. Yeah. And I'm obviously Jeremy Clarkson with less of a beer gut. And that's it. So yeah, that's us. Upcoming challenges, I mean, all sorts. We kind of have a go at everything. The idea is that we're trying to show people. I mean, I say the idea is that, as I say, we just have to do a proper job. That's the real objective. But what we pretend to do is to show people that you can have a go at anything. So I mean, literally, I've just been editing today a video where I've been riding around a velodrome on an indoor track. We've got some gravel bike stuff coming up. We've got some ultra marathon stuff coming up. I mean, yeah, just everything and anything, high rocks, CrossFit, whatever we come across. We don't do any of it particularly well, but hopefully we evidence that you don't need to do things particularly well to just go and have a bit of a bash at them. That's it in a nutshell. That's my elevator pitch.
That's
a brilliant description, though, of the Top Gear of fitness. I think that's brilliant. I never thought of it like that, but yeah, it suits you to the T. It's brilliant.
Yeah, somebody said it ages ago. My gut reaction was what a scumbag, and I think I banned them from the channel comment section forever. But then I stopped and thought about it, and I thought actually that's quite a fair description.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm not sure how to unban them, so they're banned forever. But the description stuck, and we now quite like it because it kind of gets us out of having to actually be any good. I mean, Jeremy Clarkson can drive a car better than most people because he just drives lots of cars, at least back in his Top Gear days. So he would have been better than average, but he wouldn't have been. He's not a racing driver, for example. And that's us. We aren't particularly good. We're probably better than the average person at the things we do, just by the nature of the fact that we do lots of them. But that's all. We are just kind of messing about for the most part, which, to be honest, is really what anybody needs to do. We often find ourselves, and we were just talking about high rocks, weren't we, off air just before we started? We often find ourselves involved with sports that have a fanatic element that kind of boggles our minds slightly. We don't ever get that kind of what's the word? Mentally fixated on the things we do. We try and keep a sort of a nice balance between just doing the kind of regular home stuff, eating takeaways, watching movies, and also going out at the weekend and doing something fit and athletic.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Like, that is really good what Nathan said. I mean, in regards to that, because like you said, Jeremy Clarkson isn't particularly as skilled as an F1 driver. He's driven lots of cars, so he knows how to drive a car, but you'd never compare it to someone like Lewis Hamilton. And I suppose, yeah, like you said, it's about just kind of dipping in and out of various different aspects of sports, but keeping it fun and messing around. I mean, that's why I try not to just restrict myself just to running. I love a bit of cross training and I don't cross train. When I say cross train, I just mean using different machines and stuff. But I try to dip my toe into every different aspect, various different aspects of fitness and training, because yeah, just what is hybrid, isn't it? I suppose is the way to put it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, hybrid's a kind of a buzzword at the moment, but hybrid's actually a weird word because I'm 50, and back when I was a kid, no one used the word hybrid. You just did lots of things. You might play a bit of soccer, and you might do a bit of kayaking, and you might do a bit of jogging and a bit of badminton, and you just did lots of stuff. What's happened in recent years is that pretty much everybody just does either CrossFit or bodybuilding. That's all you do, because those two things play well on Instagram. That's the reality of it. You can't put a particularly exciting park run result on Instagram in the same way as you can your kind of giant lat spread. So that's become fitness, and what's happened now is that some younger people have said, oh my goodness, you can get jacked, and apparently you can also jog at the same time. They kind of fell over with shock, and then they decided to name it a hybrid, whereas 20 years ago that was just called being fit, mate. What are you talking about? So yeah, we are hybrid, but to be honest, I'm just 1980s fit.
Yeah.
Love it.
And I'm trademarking that right now as well. If anybody wants the t-shirt.
How long have you been doing it now, Mark?
Well, my fitness journey started when I was about 36, 37, so that's about 13 years ago. But that journey was 10 years, or at least 7 or 8 years of just running. I was very overweight, so I just ran and did nothing else at all. And then I suppose around 2019, so about a year before COVID hit, I got bored with just running 10Ks. So I started doing obstacle course races, things like Spartan races, Tough Mudder, that kind of stuff. And that was when I realized that actually there was more to be done than just running. And so then it ramped up, and I was going to say it's a pity that COVID got in the way, but actually the reality was that COVID meant that everybody jumped on YouTube, which allowed us to do what we did. I mean, COVID launched a huge number of YouTube channels. We're just quite lucky that we're one of the few that are still here. Most of them got launched, and then what's the best word? I was going to say died, but I didn't want to say COVID and died in the same paragraph. I kind of felt that I was trying to show some sensitivity, but those podcasts, those channels just did die. Yeah.
I will say, with regards to COVID, I will say one thing: as terrible as it was, and as much of a weird event, and that it will go down in history, there's a lot of actually good things that came out of it. I mean, firstly, people actually learned how to wash their hands, which is crazy that it took COVID to do that. But mainly that the amount of people that have actually praised COVID or used it as an example as to how they started running and picking up walking again or something by themselves within a certain remit, following the rules. I mean, I've always run, I've always trained, but I actually started taking it more seriously during COVID and did a 7 halves in 7 days for the NHS, and that was what kind of sparked the thing of actually I might be able to do an ultra, which is what I'd always wanted to do. And listening to a lot of people out there who had kind of let it, various aspects of their life fall away, shall we say. COVID actually benefited them. It meant that they realised that sitting in the house and becoming a bit lazy is not the life they wanted, and then turned to fitness. So yeah, it's actually, as awful as it was, is something that definitely helped, I think, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, you're right. You're right for some people. So basically, people that were predisposed to going down that road anyway might have been fast tracked into doing so. That's certainly the case. I mean, that's exactly the example for me. If COVID hadn't come along, I would have eventually found myself doing more and more fitness. I wouldn't have necessarily launched a YouTube channel, but I'd certainly be doing stuff. So that happened. People that were on that journey got kind of rushed forwards with it. Statistically, what's evidentially the case is that the average person got worse. There's no doubt about it. The average person is fatter. The number of people with diabetes or pre-diabetes is higher. You only have to jump on the British Heart Foundation websites and so on to see that the stats show that actually what happened to a huge number of people is they thought sitting at home, eating Pringles, having a pizza, is quite nice. I'll do that, and decided not to ever stop doing that. And then also, without getting kind of too deep and serious, there is an interesting thing that happens when people are told en masse, you are all potentially going to be very sick and unwell, especially those of you that aren't particularly healthy. And then 18 months later, told, don't worry, the government's going to save you, take your medicine and you'll be okay. Carry on with your Pringles. I'm not sure what message that instills. Well, I am actually sure exactly what message that instills in people. It's basically don't take any personal responsibility and, pay your taxes and we'll look after you. That's the case for most people. So every time I'm on the podcast, somebody says to me, how do we solve society's problem with obesity and unhealthiness? And COVID has taught me that you can't solve it, and it will just get worse and worse and worse until the majority of us are just kind of blobs like in that Wall-E cartoon and just kind of rolling around, having donuts shoved into us by robots. That it is that bad. So yeah, I mean, a long way of explaining that what you say is absolutely right. People that were interested in it or were always probably going to find it were helped to find it sooner, and maybe in a more aggressive manner. I mean, some people have gone kind of full on. So that's nice. But the average person is just now, well, they're still average, but the average is worse. That's the bottom line. But because what else can it be if you have a disease that unfortunately targets, along with other groups, the unhealthy, and the unhealthy don't bother doing anything about it? What else? How else can you? There's no way to fix society, because an obvious way to fix society would be to say, well, let's think of some means of, if you're a kind of a crazy sort of a Bond villain trying to fix society, you'd say, well, let's invent a disease that escapes from a lab and kills unhealthy people. That'll put the jitterbugs in everybody, and they'll all start exercising. And that's exactly what happened. And they didn't. They just ate more Pringles.
Yeah. Wow. That's a
There you
deep
go.
dark
This podcast is going fun, isn't it?
It's a deep dark rabbit hole, I guess.
We never had this on Top Gear.
So Mark, you mentioned donuts. You had a problem with eating, didn't you, a couple of years ago?
No, I was excellent at it. What are you talking about?
Yeah. So what was the trigger for you to sort of like get in shape?
I mean, originally the trigger was that I was 350, 360 pounds, and that's just too heavy for a two-legged animal. It just doesn't work. So it'd be hard to get up out of a chair, and bear in mind I was mid-30s. When I say it's hard to get out of a chair, if my name was Albert and I fought in the First World War, it wouldn't matter. But at 35, that just seemed that it was inappropriate to have to groan to get up. And I had 4 little kids, and it was just embarrassing. I'd take them to their sporting activities, and I'd see their sort of 20-something coaches, and I just think, oh my goodness, 20 years ago I was like that, and now I'm like this. This is just grim. So it was just, I was quite lucky in a way, because I don't know what would have happened if I'd felt like that today, because there's actually an awful lot of there'd be an awful lot of feedback I'd be getting today that that's not necessarily a bad thing. People would see me on the beach nowadays and tell me that I was brave and empowering people. Back then I was quite lucky in that nobody was telling me that. In fact, the message was pretty clear. You're grossly overweight, and that's not very good for you. So I just got to the point where I thought, I'm going to be 40 years old soon, and my wrong idea, it was wrong, but I believed at the time, was that if I didn't sort myself out by 40, I never would. I just perceived that at 40 it was downhill, and if I wasn't in good shape at 40, I'd be just screwed. So I just set about getting in shape by the time I was 40. With hindsight, and anyone that's listening who's thinking, "Oh, this is a disaster," I'm 55 and I'm a mess. That was wrong. You can get in shape at any point, as long as you're not dead. You can get in better shape tomorrow than you are today. I was just quite lucky in that I was mistaken. I thought it was 40, and it encouraged me to crack on. If someone had said to me, "No, you can do it at 50," I might well have waited another 10 years. I'm not sure how my first date with Jen would have gone if I'd been 360 pounds,
I
but
don't think it would have happened.
no,
Honestly,
Well,
love it.
that's a bit shallow of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's a nice
At least
segue.
truthful.
That's a nice segue into my question for you, actually, Jen. I just wanted to know. I mean, obviously, here we are now, flying forward to this current day and age. What happens then in terms of obviously you both work together now. You both do the YouTube influence and stuff, I guess you can call it. Were you just like watching him do his thing and getting annoyed by it and think, you know what, this is something I'm going to do as well? Or did you see that he was getting a bit of success and get involved? Or were you always going to, like, were you working full time and your plan was to eventually join him doing that anyway? Or how did it come about? And tell us a bit about yourself, Jen.
Well, I feel on that question alone, it's probably quite a boring answer in the sense of like I said, Mark said, we did the finance together. Predominantly that was Mark doing financial advice and me doing all the background stuff for that, like the power planning and all the boring paperwork part. And given Mark just one day decided I'm not doing that anymore, that kind of meant I didn't have my job anymore. So it's
I basically just made my wife redundant. Is the yeah.
So it was kind of, you can come with me and do YouTube, or you can go find another job. And so in the meantime, I was like, okay, I'll see what the YouTube's like and I'll have a go at trying to help with that. And the idea was to look for something that I wanted to do. I just never got around to that part and just stuck out with YouTube. It seemed a nice, cushy life.
Yeah, I mean, no offense to those heroes in society that stack our shelves for us, but Jen's option was come with me, if you want to live, or go stack shelves. And so Jen thought that YouTube thing looks better than throwing Cocoa Pops up onto a rack.
Probably about a lot of them.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, we could have got cheap donuts and everything, couldn't we?
I know.
Yeah. We should reconsider that option.
Jen, were you aware that Mark was using you as clickbait, like back in the day? And how did you feel?
Her mother was.
My mum was. She was quite funny. The first time she saw it, she did not approve. It was quite funny. That was a good conversation. But I'm not sure I really ever cared. I don't know. I feel like I'm not doing much for women right now. But I don't think I ever really minded. And going forward, I don't particularly mind. I had my uncle actually, who's a huge fan of watching Mark's videos, call me up the other day and just saying, "Oh, what is it now then? You in your underwear getting out of bed in a cardio dolphin hat?" I was like, okay, which is quite strange when your uncle's saying that to you.
Yeah, as he ordered his cardio dolphin cap.
No, funny not. Yeah. No. So yeah, it's a strange one, but at the same time, I'm okay with it. I think
it's quite handy because it was a purely commercial decision, really. I mean, let's not mess about in the world of fitness. You do get more views and clicks if you are showing some flesh, male or female. That's just the nature of the beast to a certain extent. And there's only so many times I can be kind of shirtless in the thumbnail before my kids would be even more disappointed than they already are. So I just thought, well, I might as well put my wife's body on a thumbnail instead. So it's quite a commercial thing to do, but also that's we get away with it because that is the fitness world. I mean, it's ridiculous and stupid because those things shouldn't matter, but they do. It's annoying, and what we try and do is we try and hook people in to watch with the daft clickbaity. I mean, clickbait's the wrong word. because clickbait sort of implies that we're sort of offering something that we're not really selling. That's not what we're doing. We're just kind of exaggerating what we're presenting. Having then got people to watch, we then hope that they stay for the entertainment more than anything else. I mean, every now and again, somebody will comment and say, "I've got no interest in fitness whatsoever, but your videos are funny, and I'll watch them." And I'm like, "Awesome, you're my target audience then."
Yeah.
Because there's little old ladies that can't even drive that would have enjoyed watching Top Gear. So
yeah,
that's our target audience. Unfortunately, to get into that world, you do need to show some flesh in the same way that Top Gear would have needed to show some some slow motion burnouts and stuff. But that's not all it could be, because if you watch Top Gear and it's just an hour of slow motion handbrake turns, it would get tedious fast. So they hook you with that, and then they keep you with the comedy. So that's what we do. Jen is a walking burnout.
That's it's interesting though, because I don't know if you've heard of Leon Busty in the world of fitness and ultra running, that type of thing. He's he has an interesting concept. So his clickbait is that he'll post like a really funny video. So the screen grab will be like somebody on a bike going over a stupid little homemade ramp and then face planted into the floor. And you, just as they're about to face plant, he'll like come on the screen and talk to you about marathon training. And then at the end of it, he'll say, "Stick around to see this person fall flat on the face." And you do. And it keeps you. And it's incredibly clever. So there's, whether it's half naked males or females, or people smashing their face to pieces, or generally making
we did it with
themselves.
I did it with the 80s movies as well. I mean, I'm a child of the 80s, so I litter my videos with 80s movies clips as well, which again it's just trying to, I mean, to be honest, it's all really just trying to fill out the fact that we don't often know what we're talking about, and that, which is fine, but people do realize that quite early on, and once they've cottoned on to the fact that this is purely entertainment, you've then got to entertain them, because otherwise they're sat there thinking, okay, this is just nonsense. So it makes the videos harder work, because it's an awful lot harder to make an entertaining video than it is to make a factually correct fitness video, because that fitness YouTubers can just make videos, and do make videos just getting out of bed and saying, here's me, here's my morning routine, watch me as I brush my teeth and get in my ice bath, and here's a code to buy that toothbrush that I just used. You can just make that sort of factual, here's me stuff very, very simply. To actually sit down and think up something funny and entertaining is hard work, but ultimately far more satisfying. If I was simply uploading a vlog of my day, I don't know what I'd do.
Be a very, very boring video.
I would drown myself in my ice bath, to be honest.
Do you both plan your week of what you're going to be doing, and sort of like plan what you're going to do in every video?
Oh yes. I mean, yes. The simple answer is yes, but there's so much more to it than that. We've got a YouTube channel, we've got a podcast channel, we've got a Patreon channel. They all require separate types of content. I mean, it's our diary sort of stroke organization system is next level. In fact, we have about 6 separate diaries that we all interact with at the same time, and we share each other's, and we have a diary for content, a diary for tasks, a diary for Jen's private stuff, my private stuff. I mean, it's every single day is get up and look at what we've got to do that day. It's a full-time and then some job. It's every weekend, it's every evening, it's every morning. It's fun. I wouldn't change it for the world, but it's very hard work.
It's a very blurred line, isn't it? It's very hard when you do this kind of job to have actually just your normal private life, normal life, and not blur it into YouTube life. It's hard to
I was
find
going to
boundaries.
say, sorry to interrupt you, I do apologise. I was going to say, actually, on that, what you've just said, how do you stay motivated then? Like, I suppose that's a big question. How do you stay motivated and keep each other accountable, I guess, in the fitness journey, but also personally? Because I suppose, and professionally, because it's your career. How do you?
Well,
Yeah.
we're just I say because I worked in financial services for years. I come from a planning background. You know, my job for decades was telling people how to plan and achieve what they wanted financially. So I like the idea of planning everything. Jen then just goes along with it because it's that or stacking those shelves. So I mean, it's just ruthless planning. Yeah. So how do you stay motivated? Well, we have in our diary, you know, an evening where we'll sit down and we'll review what upcoming video ideas we've got. We'll then have an evening where we sit down and review what upcoming sort of social events together we've got, private social events. You know, we'll assess whether we've been out to a restaurant with enough regularity that month. So the idea is that nothing sort of gets swept under the carpet or forgotten about, whether it's content, ideas, fitness, our friends, family, our personal relationship, everything. If it's important, it goes in the diary. Now, occasionally Jen will say, do we really need to do that? And then I'll highlight that she forgot what she said we didn't need to diary. And then I win and it goes back in the diary.
Not a planner.
No, Jen wouldn't plan anything at all. And that's cool too. If we were both planners, we'd probably drown each other in the ice bath. I mean, it would just be insane. You do need, you know, opposites attract. You do need kind of, you know, yin and yang. But you can't, you know, you definitely need a planner in this game. Someone's got to be doing it.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. What's the thing I wanted to ask with the YouTubers are, have you seen like a trend in terms of content that like, so obviously you do, like you've said, you do everything from high rocks to CrossFit to running to that type of stuff. In terms of content, is there something that you get more like the most plays from, like the lifestyle stuff, the competitions, the funny stuff? Have you seen like a trend? Because obviously I have to say as well, you know, I've listened to some of your stuff as well, and watching your YouTube channel has grown exponentially. It's insane. Like, I mean, what, you're bordering 300,000 subscribers now. You're
Yeah.
clearly doing something right. And it's, again, as a second half of that question is, what kind of advice would you give to couples who were interested in starting like a similar type of like fitness journey or YouTube channel together? Like, I guess that's a double question, really.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, you do the fitness one because I'll answer the YouTube one and it won't be pretty.
I'm doing the advice.
You can do the fitness. Yeah. How does a couple get into fitness together?
Oh, well, like minus
Push.
the getting into YouTube fitness together, just getting into fitness together, I think it's just really, really important to remember that you're probably, unless you're a very lucky couple to begin with, not ever going to be at the same level of fitness, or the same level of strength. So whatever you're doing, whether it's starting running together, cycling together, high rocks together, it's just important just to go at the person that's, I guess, the least skilled or the least good at it. Pace. Like if me and Mark go out for a run, it's pointless Mark coming with me if he thinks we're going to be going at 5-minute pace the whole way, because I'm not. That for me is a PB park run for 5K. So if we're going for a run, we're going for a nice, what for me would be zone 2, like whatever 6.5-minute pace. For Mark would be probably a zone 1. But to do it together is the main part. And for example, doing cycle rides, just making it something that's not just fitness. When we go in the summer cycle rides, we take a picnic, we go find somewhere nice. It's not just the exercise part of it, it's making it fun rather than just, we've got to do the exercise and we've got to get the miles in. Just making it actually part of your fun weekend. Like our weekends are just full of active rest, active rest.
Yeah.
Which is just pretty much a stupid term for saying, okay, we're just taking it easy this weekend, but it's still something at least.
I
And
mean,
together.
Compromise is the secret. You've got, well, I say the secret. I mean, some people, you know, I talk to friends sometimes that say, "Oh, I can't wait to go, you know, play golf at the weekend because there's a chance to get away from the wife." And I think, well, then get a divorce. You know, what are you talking about? If your objective at the weekend after, week's hard work is to alienate yourself from your wife. What do what sort of relationship is that? So I will happily compromise my training to train with Jen, and Jen will compromise hers, because Jen will often train at a higher intensity than she would otherwise do, and that's not always that way either. I mean, there are some things that obviously Jen's better at than me, and vice versa. So it's a case of compromise. The bottom line is that, when you're old and about to be dead, you might remember, we will remember some of the cool things we've done together. We'll remember the mountains we've been on, and the sunsets we've seen and stuff. We won't remember what my parkrun PB is. Those aren't the things that flash before your eyes as the bus is about to hit you. So I'll happily compromise on most things for my relationship, and if that means that I'm not as fit as I could be, I simply couldn't care less. So yeah, for fitness, compromise. In terms of how to start a YouTube channel, my advice is just don't. I mean, here's the advice. YouTube, if you know your subject matter inside out, and you simply want to make a factually correct YouTube channel, whether it's about, I don't know, irrigation systems for greenhouses or working out, then crack on and make one. And if it's of interest to a sufficient number of people, then it might do well. That's simply there's a kind of a meritocracy to that, in that if you're good enough and it's valuable enough information, then it will rise to the top, one would hope. I don't do that. I do YouTube as a creative art, and whether that's singing, music, film, which kind of YouTube is, storytelling, I guess, there needs to be an ability that you can certainly develop, and you can grow, and you can make it more than it was, but there needs to be something. I mean, I could have told you when I was 22, 23 years old that I had an ability to do something creative. I just didn't quite know what it was, so I went through all sorts of things. When I tried writing TV shows, and I did stand-up comedy for a while. And I have a background of bits and pieces that when people then see my YouTube, they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. In the same way as if you went and saw Ed Sheeran on stage, and then you discovered that at 14 he was playing guitar 5 hours a day, you'd go, okay, that makes sense. What some people seem to think you can do with YouTube, because there's no barrier to entry, you just buy yourself an iPhone and you can start filming, that they seem to think that you can simply jump straight to being Ed Sheeran on stage without needing to have been a 14-year-old playing guitar for 5 hours a day. And that isn't really possible. So a lot of people just think that you just film yourself and you'll be Mr. Beast. If Mr. Beast hadn't found YouTube, he would have found himself a creative outlet somewhere else, because the guy's just staggeringly creative. So maybe he'd be writing TV shows now, or maybe he'd be writing novels or something. There would be, or he might be doing none of that. He might be an accountant, but he would be incredibly frustrated, because inside him would be something creative that he wants to get out there. So if you have that kind of, people say, oh, I've got a book inside me, I want to write a book. If you've got that sort of passion to create and entertain, then absolutely YouTube, or indeed any creative outlet, might be the thing for you. But if you simply want to jump to the entertaining part without having the thing inside you that can fuel that's like me. I know, for example, I'm learning to play the guitar. Not for a minute do I ever think I could perform music. I don't have it in me, so I don't have those sort of illusions, and it's or delusions perhaps. So it always puzzles me slightly when I see people on sort of new YouTuber forums and so on, where people just say, well, keep grinding away, you'll make it. And that sort of advice would never be given to someone that can just play, G on a guitar badly. and they do that every night, in the street, busking for pennies, and someone says, keep grinding away, you'll make it. No, you won't. You simply won't. That isn't what will happen. So yeah, that's a long-winded way of trying to keep the competition down, basically.
It's a good answer. And I wanted to just come back to something you said, Jen, actually, because I'd never thought of it. And you know what? My wife doesn't run. She absolutely loathes and detests running, but she does like training. But something you said is that when you go running and stuff together, you take like a picnic, or you'll stop off and find a nice spot and chill. Or you'll go to, like, I mean, for example, you could go to a coffee shop together or something. So you're getting your fitness in, but you're also equally spending quality time together. You're not being like you said, you're not going to remember the 5K PBs, but you will remember the nice moments together and the memories. And that's actually, I hit home a little bit, actually. I never thought about it like that, because I guess it's difficult because I go off and I'm training for like a 100-mile run in June. And so my training at the moment, quite often on weekends, I'll be gone for hours at a time in the middle of nowhere up in the mountains. And so that's pretty much the entire day wiped out. But if I'm local, I suppose the way to adapt that is that you could kind of tell your wife or your husband where you're going to finish the run, and then meet them for a coffee and make memories that way. So I think what you've brought up is a good point that would hit home for a lot of people, actually, because it's very easy to get caught up in this pattern of just train. I need to hit these. I need to do this. I need to get this pace, and then you very quickly push everything aside and lose sight of things that are most important to you, which, yeah, doesn't end well in a lot of cases.
I think
So
it's about how you define yourself. Yeah, one of the weird things that happens nowadays is that people define themselves the way that they present themselves on Instagram. That's if you say to someone that's a CrossFitter or a high roxer, what are you? They'd say, well, I'm a high roxer, because every single day they tell thousands of people, none of whom they know, that they're a high roxer, and here's me doing some high roxy things. And I don't even define myself as a fitness YouTuber at all. I mean, I'm a YouTuber who happens to do some fitness, but what am I? Well, I'm Jen's husband is number one, and everything else is then secondary to that, and it has to fit in with that. So it really comes down to, when you wake up in the morning and you think, what am I doing today? How are you defining what you are? And it's so easy nowadays to just get sucked into a world where you define yourself as the activity that you present to the world. And that's just, unless you are making a living doing that, it's absolutely nuts. It makes no, to me, I mean, equally, if there's people listening to this thinking, no, I do that and I love it. And it's coincidental that I'm on my 5th divorce. I mean, then crack on, keep at it, guys. It's nuts to me that people define themselves by their hobby. And that's really what it is. People go, no, I train 35 hours a week doing triathlon. That's your hobby. That's what that is. It's a hobby. I think how much you spent on your bicycles and your onesie, that's a hobby. And that's fine. It can be the most amazing hobby in the world. It can keep you in great shape, and it can help you see the world. It can be amazing, but it's a hobby. When you're 90, you won't be doing it. You'll hopefully still be with your partner, and you still have your kids around and so on. You won't care where your colourful onesie is.
That's great. That's true. Actually, I listened to one of your podcasts. I can't remember. Was it the modern stuff? But when you were a guest on there, and you said something very interesting about how it's kind of going off the topic a little bit, but you said about how it really frustrates you when people compare themselves to their idols, or they try to be their idols as opposed to be an individual. Like, say, like you say, like, don't be me. What is it that you say? So you don't be me, but don't
Yeah,
undo.
I don't know. I say all sorts of rubbish. What do I say? I mean, motivation. I mean, yeah, exactly that. But be motivated by people. Motivation, not emulation. So, for example, the people that motivate me can be anything. And for example, I'm sat here in front of my Tom Cruise Top Gun motorbike. I'm motivated by that, but it's just a physical lump of metal. But it
I
but it
actually
makes
thought you were going to say Jen then. You were
Yeah,
motivated by Jen. No, you
Well,
turned round to the bike.
I was indeed. That's
You have
that's
way too high hopes.
yeah. So I'm motivated by watching. Yeah, if I watch Top Gun, I'll then want to go for a run. So basically, I take the excitement, the adrenaline rush, the motivation I get from that, and I then use it for my own challenges. And what happened? And, I can do the same with watching Rocky or any sort of just exciting thing. I was watching I was watching a Mark Knopfler Dire Straits concert and just getting just excited about, and then thought, oh, I got to eat properly today. So you take that kind of endorphin rush you get from the thing that you're excited about, and then you use it for whatever you need to be doing. So the thing that I love hearing is when someone says, I watched your video on whatever, running, and I'm a 92-year-old little old lady that's a bit overweight. So tomorrow I'm going to try and do some standing one-legged, knee raises or whatever their physiotherapist has told them to do to fix their fourth hip. And they're using it for them. They're not going to go and do the run I did. So they're using me as motivation, and they're going to then inspire themselves to do what they need to do. And that's a good, healthy thing to do. Unfortunately, what typically happens nowadays is you get, especially youngsters, see the person that motivates them and simply want to be that person or as close as they can be. I'm most obviously in the world of bodybuilding, where I was a kid, I was motivated by Arnold, which was my sort of era, and people like Dorian Yates and stuff, they motivated me. But I never wanted to be Dorian Yates in a million years. I mean, the idea of being a Mr. Olympia just seemed ridiculous. But I'd be motivated by it. Nowadays, kids literally want to be Mr. Olympia. They just want to be that, and they train and they take whatever they need to take, legal or not, to try and be that. That I do not understand, and it just seems to be an incredibly destructive and pointless path to go down, because you simply won't be that. I mean, it's as just statistically that is not going to happen. Unfortunately, other kids see the top 0.001% of kids that do end up super jacked and think, oh, it's happening. It's the same as Camelot showing us the four people that became millionaires and making every other mug go out and buy a ticket to be one of them. If Camelot showed us the 59 million people in this country that aren't a millionaire, they'd probably sell less tickets.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it, because you can obviously try to reach your highest potential in whatever avenue it is that you take, but not trying to reach as somebody else's potential. Like, for example, huge fan of Courtney Dauwalter, an amazing, essentially probably one of the best or greatest ultra marathon runners of all time. I look at her and what she does and her recent wins and how she keeps smashing things out the park, but I would never look at her and say, well, I'm going to do the same thing as her. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to run, through Cocodona and come first, and the second person's going to be 10 hours behind me. I would never dream of doing that, but my potential would be to just finish it. You know what I mean? Be lucky enough to be standing there and then cross the finish line. But yeah, too many people fall down this rabbit hole of doing it, and then it's like you said, it's crazy.
Yeah, that comes back to how you define yourself, because Courtney defines herself as an ultra runner, and should do. That's she's a professional athlete, and there's no problem with her defining herself as such. The problem occurs when your kind of weekend warrior defines themselves as just an ultra runner. Suddenly you've now got two ultra runners, and so it becomes very natural for them to compare themselves to Courtney because they're just two ultra runners. I run ultra marathons, but I don't define myself as an ultra runner, so I couldn't care less what an elite ultra runner is doing, because I tell you what, they're not doing the same deadlift as me, not in a million years. So I have other things about me going on that in a kind of in the top trumps of life. I have other metrics that I score myself on, and I don't need to get bogged down in what one person can do that I can't, because I have other things in that, you know, in that on that top trumps card. If all you have on it is ultra runner, then what can you do but compare yourself to another ultra runner? And if you find yourself lacking, you're now just lacking. I mean, it's again, it all comes down to just don't define yourself so narrowly as I'm a CrossFitter. You know, okay, you're not now Matt Fraser, so you're now not very good. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But that's again, that's what people do, and they shouldn't, in my opinion.
Very true.
So Jay, going back to sort of like the running, when you talk about your pace and everything, I think it was about a year ago, you both did a trail race up in the Brecon Beacons, and where quite often you would leave a mark behind because you couldn't keep up. So did you find the mountains easier than Mark?
I would say I find the downhill of a mountain easier than Mark. I think that's merely down to weight and age. He doesn't have the knees to plummet down.
I basically can't run downhill. I'm too old and too heavy. And Jen runs downhill actually like a child.
Almost like a skip, like a what?
Yeah, like a child.
The best part of the run.
Yeah, I'm trying to be polite, like a very carefree child. One that should probably be wearing a helmet or something. You fly down hills.
I do. I get very excited because I fly down the hills. I go past about 10, 15 people down a downhill section in Wales because they last forever going downhill because you've just done the really steep going uphill part. And so I go past about 10, 15 people, and then obviously the next climb comes and they all just go back past me.
Yes. You're like
Mark just comes back and catches me up quite quickly because he's now done the downhill section and is now running up the hill, and I'm just staggering up very slowly.
You're like one of those really annoying lorry drivers that flies down a hill and then goes up it at 45 miles an hour and gets in everyone's way. That's what you're like. Obviously a very attractive, lightweight, but lorry driver. I mean, I'm quite nice because what I'll do is on the climb up the hill, I'll go with Jen because it'd be rude to just go off and leave her. And then when we get to the top of the hill, she just disappears downhill like an idiot. And I'm left kind of trying to strategically work my way down the mountain path like an elderly mountain goat.
It's actually quite sad sometimes because I won't have the dog with me and I'll go rushing down the hill, and Mark will be obviously up the top of the hill still making his way down, and I can just hear Nixon barking his head off as to say, you've left me up here and I'm going so slow. Yeah,
I have to choke the dog out just to slow him down. Anybody, I mean, it's a good job that there's no one up there with kind of cameras and Facebook, because I'd be outed as some kind of dog abuser, because when the dog goes crazy to try and catch up with Jen, there's nothing I can do. That dog, I have to just choke him out a little bit and he calms down, and then we can go down the hill more sedately. Our book on dog training is coming out soon.
What makes me laugh as well, me and Nathan were talking about this off air, is how the competitive edge that you both have with each other is hysterical. Like, for example, with Jen, like, you'll often find she just powers through whatever it is that she's doing, and she kind of keeps herself to herself. And then with you, Mark, you're just complacent and you're moaning and you're bitching. And it's funny. It's funny. It's just it's nice. It's because it's real.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm more of a silent person. Like, just don't talk to me. Just leave me alone. I'm just going to get through it on my own. Whereas you're just needing the whole shouting and groaning and moaning part going on.
Yeah, and also part of that is a little bit for when I say it's for YouTube, I don't mean that I put on being miserable for YouTube. I just mean that I've had many occasions where things have gone south, and I've put the camera away. Because I've thought, I mean, on some occasions, literally, I've thought, you know, I mean, when I've been motorcycling in the mountains and stuff, I've thought, well, this is now getting tricky, and I don't want to die on this mountain and then have people find the footage, and I'll be that idiot who, you know, just kind of filmed himself riding off the edge of a cliff by mistake. So I put the camera away, but then, as you can see, I've never died on a mountain, and so it always reminds me next time don't put the camera away, because what will probably happen is you'll survive, and if you didn't put the camera away, you'll have some really cool footage. So when things go bad, I tell myself, just do not put the camera away. Equally, don't die, because that would be embarrassing. But I keep it out. I just try and explain to camera what's going through my head, and every time I've done that, or nearly every time, I then get back home here, sit down, edit footage together, and when I'm, relaxed and calm, that then becomes useful footage to have, whether it's entertaining or motivating or inspiring. And really, it's emotion, and a lot of people kind of think that I get a bit sort of pretentious about YouTube and making these little kind of mini films with narrative story arcs and stuff. But that's just how I treat it. And if I can inject some emotion into something that was emotional, then I want to do that. I don't want to just portray a 100K ultramarathon as just a bag of laughs, because it's not.
In fact, when I did the 100K on my own in September, we went to go the Thames Path, but Mark actually ended up just supporting me along the way. And I had in my head most of the way was Mark's little voice in my head going, get the camera out, film, film, film. So I was that, for once in my life, the nut job that Mark was, just talking to the camera. And actually, watching the video back now, there's parts of it you think, yes, you should have filmed it, because it does add that emotion to what was happening at the point in time.
Yeah. In fact, I had a comment recently actually on that video where towards the end of it, Jen, her Garmin broke down and she was having a bit of a nightmare with 10K to go, and I hadn't run the race, so I was back at the finish line waiting for her, and she texted me just before our phone conked out and said, I'm 10K away, and it's all gone wrong. So I grabbed my GoPro and just ran 10K in the pitch dark. The only torch I had was the light built into my Garmin Phoenix, and so I ran a really fast 10K. It was off-road, pitch black. I think I did like 46 minutes, and as I was doing it, I was talking to the GoPro, which the GoPro couldn't see a thing. It was just pitch black for half of it. And I had a comment on the video from someone recently saying it was a lady saying that they were in tears watching it, because I'm basically saying, as I'm running along, 8K to go. The objective is just to get to Jen before she kind of gives up completely and throws herself in the river. And she could feel from that the actual emotion that was happening in that event. It wasn't just fun and games. That was an emotional time. So yeah, if you can film it, is always my advice. Yeah.
I'm actually, this 100-miler I'm doing, I'm desperately trying to find somebody. I simply can't afford to buy a GoPro, but I'm desperately trying to find one. I got a friend who's got one, and maybe I can sweeten him up, because like you said, I love that. That's the kind of filming and editing that I love, because it's real. Like keeping the camera on, obviously not when you're about to die, like you said. It's important, because that's the real side of it. Too many people now have these fake accounts where they show everything as glorious and perfect, and the sunrises and all this stuff. But yeah, you see that, but there's also 70 miles into a run where you can barely move, you're tired, you're falling asleep whilst you're walking, you're having hallucinations. That's all the stuff that is real, and that's the stuff that I look for when I'm watching videos of ultra runners and stuff, because it's real. So yeah, and it's motivating as well.
It is. It's interesting because you mentioned people just show the one side. The other thing they'll do sometimes is they'll just show the other side, but that's so one-dimensional too. You get it's quite a thing for female influencers in particular to sort of photograph their kind of their belly fat rolls and say, hey, look, this is the reality. But that's just a one-dimensional picture too. That isn't an interesting story. A story, as it has been for thousands and thousands of years, is typically a setup, a conflict, and a resolution. I mean, that at its simplest, that's most stories. And so something like an ultramarathon lends itself to that about as naturally as you can get. Setup, I'm going to run this thing. Conflict, something goes wrong. resolution I crossed the finish line. I mean, it lends itself to that narrative arc beautifully. All you have to do is record it all. And too often people just think, well, I need to just show the glossy side, which is that's a Rocky movie where he just wins fights. Who's watching that? Or equally, I'm only going to show the gritty reality. Well, that's just Rocky getting beaten up, and then he's in a coma for the rest of the movie. That's who's watching that? So yeah, ultra running in general, any sort of race, especially long races, just lend themselves to the story process beautifully, as long as you record as much as you can, and then from that, you then have all the material you need to sculpt a story, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. And I wanted to say, just switching a little bit, we've spoken a lot about like the physical side of things and the fitness and the training and everything. In terms of mental health and well-being, I'm curious, obviously alongside the fitness and obviously your incredibly busy schedule, like you explained, the diaries and everything, it's a 7-day-a-week thing by the sounds of it. What do you guys do to switch off mentally? Do you do yoga, meditation? Is there anything that you do in terms to try and like zone out when you can?
So we try to very much stick to a rule that, as you know, well, you might not know, but we have 3 dogs that need to be walked. And we try to stick to our dog walking is just zone out time. It's not talking about YouTube. It's not talking about anything. It's just zone out, enjoy the walk, fresh air, sunshine. We tend to try and do it in the daytime when it's sun out. So you're getting your vitamin D and you feel goods kind of going on. And that's zone out time for us normally. We both also use mobility app, stretching thing. Mark tends to do his in the morning. I tend to do mine in the evening. So that's also like a nice little 20 minutes kind of away from it all. And we regularly sauna. And so that's a very easy way of just literally sitting and doing nothing and just zoning out, albeit getting very hot.
Yeah, that's just sauna's a good one.
Yeah,
I can sit in the sauna and just get. I mean, we're a little bit obviously privileged to have one, but it's cool to just be able to sit somewhere and just think about nothing. Actually, I say think about nothing. It's actually where a lot of my video ideas come to me, but they come to me in a mental space of thinking of nothing, and then suddenly an idea just pops up. It's not like I'm sat there mentally working. So yeah, we do that, and also I do things like guitar now, because one of the problems with YouTube is it is a creative outlet which I require, but it's always against a backdrop of having to make commercial decisions around that creativity. So sometimes I won't be able to be making the video I'd ideally want, because I've got half an eye on what will play well on YouTube. And so it's creative, but it has to sort of fit its role in my life, which is my job. So guitar is just it isn't that. It's just me creating something at the moment horrific. Yeah,
just creating noise.
I create an absolute terrible sound, but I don't have to kind of adhere to any kind of rules and regulations. I just go and do it myself. And also we're just lucky in that we don't have, my kids are grown, and now we're independent, so we have quite a lucky life. I mean, I say lucky life, you can't make your own luck slightly, but yeah, we don't have some of the pressures that some people do. We don't have a boss, we don't have kids screaming for our attention. So we've structured it that way, that we have the freedom to focus on the things that are important to us. I'm quite keen on the idea that if something is a negative distraction in my life, then it really, really needs to justify why it's still taking up any of my time, because I'll happily just drop it. So things that I don't, I mean, here's a daft example. We have a car, and about 2-3 weeks ago, I decided the car was just no longer entertaining me. I'd get in that car and I'd say, it's just not what I. So it got sold today. It's gone. It's out of my life. I don't want to. I don't. And again, we're lucky that we can do things like that. But if something is mentally niggling me, I'm quite good at stopping and thinking, okay, it's a nuisance. Do I need it? If I do, I want to fix it. If I don't, it can go, and on to the next thing. And part of that comes with being 50. You know, at 50, you're acutely aware of your finite time on Earth, and I don't have time to spend with a car that is a soulless lump of metal.
For the record, I liked the car.
Yeah, you like the car, yeah,
Gone.
but it's gone anyway. Yeah, car,
What did the
car.
car ever do?
I make car decisions. Jen chooses whether we keep the dogs or not on a daily basis, because I'd have them gone. So Jen gets to keep the dogs daily, so I get to abandon the cars at will. That's the sort of compromises we make.
Could have been worse. You could have got rid of the dog and kept the car without Jen knowing, and I'm sure that would have been a very different conversation altogether.
The car's horrific. BMW, hang your head in shame. They've gone from making amazing cars to making the most soulless lumps of junk I've ever had the misfortune to own.
Red harsh on BMW.
Kawasaki, on the other hand, I'd like to say, shout out to Kawasaki. You still make amazing motorbikes. They haven't yet sponsored me. But Mr. Kawasaki, I don't know if he's still with us. Mr. Kawasaki Jr. I was trying to think if I knew any Japanese words I can press him with, but I don't. You know any? Do you know any
No.
Japanese? No.
No.
Okay, we're stuck.
Have you got any plans to get back on the bike and have another road trip?
Oh, yeah.
Motorbike or push bike?
Motorbike.
Yes.
Have we?
Yeah, I want to go back to Africa.
Yeah. I mean,
Namibia.
yeah, it's tricky. I mean, we have to remind ourselves occasionally that we only started YouTube proper as a business. I mean, it was a stupid hobby that made no money. It was only, I don't know, what, summer of 22, wasn't it? So not even 2 years yet since we decided to try and make a go of it. So in the world of small startup businesses, we are very, very early days. You know, if we were a cafe or something, we would still be regarded as a new business where it's quite expected that it's all hands on deck and you focus and you work hard, and maybe at 5 years in you can start to wind off the gas a bit. So we're still there. It's quite hard to think about things that would take so much time and effort away from what is still at this stage an early startup business. And it's slightly why things like that we can do, like daft things, swapping our car. We sort of entertain ourselves with stuff like that rather than crazy trips away, because we just don't have the time to do it. And people will say, well, film it and turn it into content, but the reality is that isn't a given. You know, we have an audience of people. I mean, Top Gear is a good example there, actually. You know, Clarkson had to kind of pivot quite carefully to go from where he was to where he is now with his farm stuff, and he still had to kind of drive tractors like an idiot around fields. There still had to be an element of what we know him for. Had Clarkson simply turned into a sort of chef, yeah, had he kind of just started doing food content, a lot of people wouldn't have followed him. So we always need to have a half eye on taking our subscribers with us, and that requires pivots that are not too dramatic. If you're used to watching someone who's doing something fitness based and you tune in and suddenly they're flower arranging, then you might turn off. If they're flower arranging while on a concept 2 row or something, then you might take them with you. So we're just a bit careful of that.
Also, when people say, oh, just film it, you then have to, it's then that compromise, or it's the give up of the fact that it's actually meant to be a trip that we're not that we don't enjoy filming and doing YouTube, but it's meant to be a time out. It is meant to be that downtime. It is meant to be a holiday that you're looking forward to. It's meant to be a trip away from your day-to-day life. And for us, day-to-day life is YouTube. So to take YouTube with us on our trip, it's not really having time off. It's now just a working holiday.
I
So
was
it
going to
does
say,
make it quite hard to do.
goes from being a trip to, yeah, like you said,
Yeah, it's a
it's no
compromise.
longer a trip then, is it? Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Especially not the way we would do it, because we wouldn't just stick a GoPro on our head and film what we did. If we were doing it, we would want to, yeah, in fact, we did do this. We did this in 2018 when we set the YouTube channel up, just because I wanted to create a story about our motorcycle trip in Africa at the time. We did film it, but I'm riding along constantly thinking of things to film and things to talk about to camera. I mean, and, you know, the reason we set the YouTube channel up, or I set it up originally, was slightly because I'd been to Africa on a motorbike and filmed my trip and had this amazing footage, I thought, from my GoPro helmet on my GoPro camera on my helmet. And when I got back home, I looked at it and it was just hours and hours of road coming towards me and going by, and that isn't actually entertaining at all. And so when we went back, I thought, actually, let's make a proper story, and that does require stopping. It requires, you know, for example, you arrive at a petrol station and you're told there's no petrol and the petrol doesn't arrive for another 4 days. It requires talking to camera about that and having a conversation about that, at the same time working out how on earth you're going to deal with that. And so it turns the journey into something a bit different. And it'd be nice to be in a place, which we will be in a few years, hopefully, where we could just go and just turn off from filming, almost not take a camera.
I
Almost.
can't imagine you'll be able to do that.
Yeah,
but-
no, Jen's face then was just like, yes, never
Never
gonna
gonna
happen.
happen.
Never
Well,
gonna
yeah,
happen.
if we got attacked by baboons or something, yeah, you'd want to film it just for prosperity, if nothing else. But yeah, we certainly wouldn't be doing stories. I mean, on our first trip to Africa, where we filmed it properly, every time we arrived at the lodge we were staying at that night, I'd be spending an hour or so doing a sort of vlog style talk to camera about what we'd done that day and what was planned for the next day. And, you know, Jen's waiting to go and eat, and, you know, been riding for 6 or 7 hours that day. And I'm saying, hang on a minute, I've got to, you know, tell this funny one-liner still that I've had, you know, 14 takes at, and it just isn't rolling off the tongue yet. So it's, yeah, it would be nice to be able to go and do that stuff without new business pressure on our shoulders.
Yeah.
So what are the plans for the year coming ahead then? Have you got any ultras, Spartans, high rocks coming up?
Yes, so part of my job as the person that does night planning is actually to plan in all the events for the year. So we have quite a few coming up. It starts in March, actually. So in March, we are going back to Wales. We're doing the Limitless Trails one. I think it's the Brecon Beacons one, or maybe the Beast of the Backs. I can't remember which one, but we're doing that one at the end of March. I'm going to do my first duathlon at Donny Lake, and we're then doing it again in April, see if I can improve my duathlon times. I've only literally just got into cycling. Then big things coming up later in the year. We're doing the London to Brighton ride together. We're probably going to do the south version of the Chase of Sun, maybe the north version. We're not sure on which one yet. And we're debating whether or not to do the Thames Path Challenge, actually running it together this year instead of not doing it together as previous year. And quite a few other things as well. We've got lots of duathlon, lots of cycling, glorious gravel rides, loads of events. We've tried to make sure pretty much every weekend where we're not busy with some other private type thing, it's got an event in the diary. We're kind of the thinking that if you've got an event, there's at least you're going to be doing something that weekend that's active, whether it's just your local 10K or if it's a whatever. I think one of the biggest ones is probably 100K kind of like ride, just gravel ride, and just every other weekend is doing something.
Yeah, every weekend. Yeah,
We try to, or I'm in the process of trying to make sure our website has all our events on it so people can see what we're up to, and obviously can go to the events and do it themselves and have a go.
I'm also going to be riding whatever Kawasaki they choose to give me. Once Mr. Kawasaki gets word of this, so I'll be doing that as well, and making an amazing video for them.
Oh, you've got Hyrox as well. Hyrox Spartans, a whole bunch of things going on.
Yeah, maybe Hyrox. I have a Hyrox in the diary,
Oh yeah, maybe it's a bit.
but I'm not sure on Hyrox. I might be Hyroxed out.
Is that because
Oh,
Jen
really?
beat you?
No, actually, it's not down to me at all. It'd be actually down to Hyrox's rules.
Oh, we're not going there.
Oh,
No, we're not doing that.
Games, have they?
Well, no, it gets no. I mean, really, the reason that I'm just the last one I ran, I found myself running around it. It's a bit of a motorcycle story. Many years ago, I used to do track days on my motorbikes. I used to go to tracks and race around as fast as possible. And after a couple of years, I found myself a track called Pembrey. Pembrey, if anybody doesn't know, is in Wales. And it doesn't ever not rain at this. Actually, I won't say any more because I don't want to be rude to the people of that grotty little area of Wales. And it was horrible. I went there and it rained, and I couldn't get a PB. It was grim. So I drove back down the M4, and I thought, that's it, I'm done. I spent a fortune on getting that track day booked and a day off work, and I didn't go as fast as I wanted to go. So I'm done. I'm never going to do track days again. It's the last track day I ever did. And I had that same experience doing Hyrox recently. I was running around, and I knew I wasn't going to be. Well, I wasn't going to win. That's the bottom line. I went to the particular Hyrox event with the expectation of winning my age group, and the guy that I knew would be closest to beating me passed me, and I knew I probably couldn't catch him, and I probably wasn't going to set a PB either. So about halfway around, I dropped out because what's the point? That I'm not going to set a PB. I've got plenty of second place prizes. I want a first. And so it made perfect sense to drop out, but it also made perfect sense to never do another one, because having got to that point, what is the point of doing another one? I just kind of felt like that track day in Pembrey. It just felt to me like I'd rather do something that I suck at, and the challenge is to simply get it done, than get hung up with this kind of, am I going to be first or second, and am I going to be as fast as I was before, and there's somebody beating me. I don't need that. Again, I don't define myself as a Hyrox athlete or indeed an athlete. So to be traveling to wherever we went for this event and leaving it despondent because of my performance is a nonsensical use of my time. So I'm in two minds as to whether I do another one. And if I do, it will probably be a doubles event for fun, whether that's with Jen or somebody else. So I'm not sure, but it's a good example of how once something, and again, this also ties in with what I was saying about problems in my life. Once something becomes problematic, I'm very happy to simply move on and do something else. I don't get, you know, I often see people on running forums that I'm on. They say, "Oh, I hate running," and how do you guys all go running so often? I hate it. Well, stop running then. Stop. What are you doing? Cycle or do, you know, cricket or whatever. You know, there's a million things you could go and do. Don't do. If something is rubbish, don't do it. So yeah, I'd be a terrible counsellor, because yeah, these people would come to me. They'd say, "Look, I do triathlon at the weekends to get rid of get time away from my wife. I'd send them home and make them get divorced." And anyone that's complaining about the sport they do, just, yeah, people go, "Oh, I hate the gym." Well, they never set foot inside a gym in your life. You know, for thousands and thousands of years, we got by without gyms. You know, there wasn't gyms 100 years ago. There was just people outside being fit and healthy. So it's perfectly possible to be very fit and healthy. And my dad's 85. I don't think my dad's ever put his foot inside a gym in his life. I mean, interestingly, he's also never had an ice bath. He's never meditated. He's never filled out a thankfulness journal. So it is possible to not do the things that we're told you must do. So yeah, if something's annoying you or you're not quite, it doesn't sit well with you, then it's got to really justify itself to you. At the moment, High Rocks isn't justifying itself to me. Sorry,
That's
High Rocks.
interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting. I mean, it kind of goes back to something Nathan said. I suppose it'd be a good place to maybe draw it to an end for you guys. I'm conscious of the time and stuff as well. But just one thing I will say is, in the land of fitness, YouTube, and everything else, is there an absolute bucket list or something that you guys want to do together or individually, whatever it is, that you have always wanted to do and are aiming for one day to complete or to do or to travel to or anything at all? Is there something?
Well, I think I'm going to end up doing this one on my own because Mark is yet to be tempted by the idea, but I want to get a big Winnebago and go around either Australia or America in it when we've no longer got the 3 dogs. But Mark is determined not to ever step his foot inside a motorhome.
Yeah, because that's a stupid idea. I like the idea of a kind of motorhome camper type thing, but I only like it in the sense that I would drive to the field where the ultramarathon that I'm doing that day is. I'd have it as a place where I could have my breakfast, and when I got back after the race, I could chill out in it and then drive home to my bed and my power shower and all my mod cons. So I don't like the idea of I mean, quite frankly, I spent too long working too hard to sleep in a vehicle at night. That's just one of my rules. For me, I don't really have anything. I'm very lucky. I've done lots of cool things. So everything I get to do is just a wacky bonus. There's nothing really on my to-do list. Not really. I suppose, I mean, on a YouTube, I'd like to get big enough on YouTube that I could just make occasionally just straight up funny videos and not care that they don't get the sort of views that I'd like. Because every now and again I do a video that's very self-indulgent, very, very funny, it's very witty, but people don't quite get it, and therefore the views don't do as well. It's a good example actually is in the UK, we have a comedian called Stuart Lee. And Stuart Lee is, if you know comedy, very, very good. I mean, just very good. But equally, a lot of people don't get Stuart Lee, and he has to contend with views and audiences that are much less than slightly broader comics that people do get. And I see why they're funny, but would also have to be lobotomized to sit in front of them for longer than 5 minutes. So I find myself a bit like that with YouTube sometimes. I'd like to be able to be Stuart Lee and do just the kind of comedic stuff that I would like to do. But I know that what would happen is that the views would be terrible. Instead, I occasionally drop little bits into my videos that I know will go over the heads of many people. But if one person in the comments says, "Oh, I see what you did there," that's good enough for me. That has to do for now. But when I hit 1 million subscribers, the video that I put out then, most people will think, "What the hell is this? I didn't get that at all." and I'll think I don't care. 10 people saw it, and then I'll go back to making, Top Gear nonsense after that.
Yeah, I was fully expecting some kind of Top Gun related answer there, if I'm being honest with you, like a trip across San Diego in a F-14 or Tom Cruise on the show or something. I was fully expecting that.
Do you know, I'm incredibly lucky with what I do. I'm sat here, when I was 16, 17, I wanted to be a Top Gun pilot. And today I've got Maverick's motorbike behind me. I've got my Top Gun mug on my desk. I recorded a podcast just the other day with an ex-Top Gun instructor, who is I now refer to as my lifelong friend. So I've now got a Top Gun instructor friend. So no, I've not made it to a naval aviator, but
You've just surrounded yourself.
I have surrounded myself with enough memorabilia and humans that have done it to be quite content.
Nice. That's a bloody good answer. You appreciate where you are in life and you're doing what you want. And like you said, you've got a very, very varied background. From was it lifeguard, financial services, stand-up comedian, and now you're doing this. And you and Jen have got this awesome little funny relationship where you basically take the piss out of each other all the time, and you do challenging things,
I
and
think that's very much one
you
way.
make money from making good content and making people laugh, and also giving interesting educational videos, and it's fun. So I think, yeah, you appreciate where you are, and that's all you need. I get it.
Yeah,
That's nice.
that's it. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, yes, exactly that. I mean, we are very lucky in that everything we get is just kind of, it's now icing on the cake in a way, and that's a cool place to be. It's taken a lot of hard work. I mean, we didn't just kind of fall into that situation, but we are there now, so we can pick and choose what we throw our time and effort into.
Yeah, awesome. That's probably a good place, I reckon, to end it. I mean, I can't think of a better point to end it there. Nate, what do you reckon?
No, we've had the start, we've had the middle, and we've had the end.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, actually, the actual end would be as if Mr. Kawasaki now popped up on the phone and said,
Yeah.
"Surprise, surprise." And also, you guys, because this is your podcast, and I won't. You don't want to get you cancelled. You'll appreciate that I didn't do my Japanese accent for surprise, surprise. But he just dives in with surprise, surprise. Here's a Kawasaki for you. That would have been the perfect ending.
Yeah, and look what we've got over here for you. Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, no. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Well, yeah. Let's hope he's listening. Are they awake at the moment? Actually, I'd say at the moment this isn't live, is it? I thought I was on Good Morning Britain for a minute there. It's a podcast. He'll hear it at some point, I'm sure. Tag him in it.
We will.
Yes, awesome. Wicked. Well, thank you for that, mate. And thank you to everybody who's listened. Really hope everyone's enjoyed that. I know I did. That was hysterical. I can see why you were once a stand-up comedian, Mark. Fair play. That was brilliant. It was just, you've got a way with your words. You know your stuff, and you put it across in such a good way. And you and Jen make an amazing team. And I know that Nate will vouch for this as well. We thoroughly enjoyed this. And thank you so much, because we are very young into our podcasts, literally starting in January, and we've had some great guests, and you guys are just adding to that list. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Yeah,
having
you're
us.
welcome. Yeah, been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
both. Keep up the good work. I love your videos. Been
Yeah,
watching them for years.
Thank you.
100%. Yeah, nice one, guys. Well, we'll let you get on and everything. But yeah, cheers, guys. Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, guys. All right.
Bye.